Divorced while pregnant. Uncle's lawyer called with news that changed everything. That's exactly what happened to Imani Richardson when her husband signed divorce papers and walked out, leaving her 7 months pregnant, broke, and sleeping on her sister's couch. He said she was too ordinary for the life he wanted. Too small town, too unsophisticated. What he didn't know was that Imani's late uncle, the reclusive billionaire Malcolm Okonkwo, had just left her an inheritance worth $340 million, and the lawyer's call came exactly 1 week after the divorce was final. What happened next will make you rethink everything about love, judgment, greed, and the danger of underestimating the quiet ones. Before we dive in, if you love real stories about karma, justice, and people getting exactly what they deserve, hit that subscribe button right now and smash the like. I also want to know, where are you watching this from? Georgia, New York, Manchester, Lagos, Netherlands? Drop your location in the comments. It helps us build this incredible community, and honestly, I read every single one. Now let's get into this story. The apartment smelled like vanilla candles and regret. Imani Richardson sat on the edge of her sister's pull-out couch, one hand resting on her swollen belly, the other gripping a crumpled piece of paper. The ink had smudged from where her tears had fallen, but the words were still clear. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Filed by her husband, ex-husband, Elliot Vance. 7 months pregnant, and he'd walked out without looking back. Imani's sister, Amara, stood in the doorway of the tiny Atlanta apartment, arms folded, jaw tight. "I still can't believe he did this," she said quietly. "Not now. Not like this." Imani didn't respond. She'd stopped trying to make sense of it days ago. The shock had worn off, replaced by a dull, aching numbness that settled into her bones like cold rain. Elliot Vance, real estate developer, smooth talker, designer suits and Italian leather shoes. A man who measured worth by zip codes and stock portfolios. They'd met at a charity gala 3 years ago. She'd been working the registration table as a volunteer. He'd been networking with investors. He told her she had kind eyes. She thought he had ambition. They got married 8 months later. For a while it worked, or at least she thought it did. But then the cracks started showing. "You're too simple, Imani," he'd said one night after a work dinner. "These people, my colleagues, my clients, they notice things. The way you talk, what you wear, where you're from." She'd grown up in a small town outside Savannah. Her parents were teachers, modest income, strong values, tight-knit community. She wasn't ashamed of it, but Elliot was. "I'm trying to build something here," he'd continued. "An image, a brand. And you—" He'd trailed off, shaking his head like she was a disappointing investment. That conversation happened 6 months into the marriage. The divorce papers came 2 years later. Now Imani sat in borrowed space, wearing borrowed maternity clothes, wondering how her life had unraveled so completely. Amara walked over and sat beside her, placing a warm hand on her shoulder. "You're going to be okay, sis. I don't know how yet, but you will." Imani wanted to believe her. But belief required energy she didn't have. Her phone buzzed on the coffee table. She glanced at the screen. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Hello? Ms. Richardson?" The voice was deep, professional, careful. "Yes? My name is Leonard Ashford. I'm an estate attorney with Ashford & Klein in Chicago. I've been trying to reach you regarding the estate of Malcolm Okonkwo." Imani froze. "Uncle Malcolm?" "Yes, ma'am. I'm very sorry for your loss." Her Uncle Malcolm, her mother's older brother, a man she'd only met a handful of times growing up, always distant, always traveling, always wrapped in an air of mystery. He'd made his fortune in international shipping and logistics, building an empire that stretched from West Africa to Southeast Asia. He never married, never had children. And when her mother passed away 5 years ago, he'd quietly paid for the funeral without fanfare or recognition. Imani hadn't spoken to him in over a decade. She didn't even know he'd died. I didn't know he passed," she said softly. "It was sudden," Leonard said. "A stroke, 3 weeks ago. His estate has been in probate, but the will was very clear. You are the sole beneficiary. The words didn't land at first. They floated around her like mist, intangible and strange. Sole beneficiary? She repeated. Yes, ma'am. Mr. Okonkwo left his entire estate to you. I'll need to meet with you in person to go over the details. But I wanted to reach out directly given the substantial nature of the inheritance. Amara leaned closer, eyes wide, mouthing, "What's going on?" Imani shook her head slightly. "Still processing." "Substantial," she echoed. "Yes. The estate includes liquid assets, real property holdings, and shares in several private companies. The total valuation is approximately $340 million. The room tilted. Imani's breath caught. Her hand went instinctively to her belly, as if grounding herself in something real. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Did you say $340 million? "Yes, ma'am." Silence. The kind that stretches and bends until it feels like the world has stopped spinning. Amara grabbed her arm. "Imani, what?" "I'll need you to come to Chicago within the next 2 weeks to finalize the transfer," Leonard continued. "I can arrange travel and accommodation if needed, but given the complexity of the estate, it's important we meet soon." Imani swallowed hard. I'm pregnant. 7 months. We'll make sure everything is comfortable for you," Leonard assured her. "I'll have my assistant coordinate with you. But Ms. Richardson, I want to emphasize, this is legitimate. Your uncle was very intentional about his wishes. He wanted you to have this, all of it." Tears blurred her vision, but this time they weren't from grief or exhaustion. They were from something else entirely, something she couldn't name yet. "Thank you," she whispered. "I'll be there. We'll be in touch soon. And Ms. Richardson?" "Yes?" "Congratulations. Your life is about to change." The call ended. Imani lowered the phone slowly, staring at the black screen as if it might offer further explanation. Amara grabbed her shoulders. "Imani, what just happened?" She looked up at her sister, eyes wide, voice shaking. "Uncle Malcolm, he's gone. And he left me everything." "Everything what?" $340 million. So Amara's mouth fell open. For a full 10 seconds, neither of them moved. Then Amara started laughing, not out of humor, but disbelief. "You're telling me," she said slowly, "that you just found out you're a multimillionaire 1 week after Elliot divorced you?" Imani nodded. Amara let out a breath, then whispered, "Oh, karma is real." Across town, in a sleek high-rise condo overlooking Piedmont Park, Elliot Vance poured himself a glass of bourbon and admired the view. Floor-to-ceiling windows, marble countertops, a home theater system worth more than most people's cars. This was the life he'd always wanted. Clean, sophisticated, untethered. His phone buzzed. A text from his girlfriend, Sienna, a luxury real estate agent with legs for days and a smile that opened doors. "Dinner at 8? Wear the Tom Ford suit." He smirked. Sienna understood the game. She knew how to dress, where to be seen, how to make an entrance. Everything Imani wasn't. He'd felt guilty at first. Divorcing a pregnant woman wasn't exactly a good look, but he justified it to himself 100 times over. She didn't fit. She never would. And he wasn't going to spend the rest of his life pretending otherwise. He'd offered her a settlement, $15,000 in health insurance through the birth. She'd signed without a fight. No drama, no lawyers, just quiet resignation. Good, he'd thought. She knows her place. He sipped his bourbon, scrolling through Instagram. Sienna had posted a photo of them from last weekend. Yacht party, champagne, golden hour lighting. The comments were full of fire emojis and congratulations. Life was good. Better than good. He had no idea that in a small apartment across town, the woman he'd discarded like old furniture had just inherited a fortune large enough to buy his entire building. Twice. 2 days later, Imani sat across from Amara at the kitchen table, a notepad in front of her covered in scribbled notes. "Okay," Amara said, tapping her pen against the table. "Let's go through this again. Leonard said you need to go to Chicago. He's arranging everything. But what happens after that?" Imani exhaled slowly. "He said there are properties, investments, businesses. I don't even know what half of it means yet." "Do you trust him?" This Leonard guy, he sent his credentials. I looked him up. He's legitimate. Ashford and Klein is one of the top estate law firms in the country. Amara nodded, chewing her lip. And you're sure Elliot doesn't know? He doesn't even know Uncle Malcolm existed, Amani said. I barely talked about my family with him. He wasn't interested. Good. Keep it that way. Amani looked down at her belly, feeling the baby shift beneath her palm. A girl. She'd found out at her last ultrasound. A tiny, stubborn girl who kicked whenever Imani ate strawberries. I don't want revenge, Imani said quietly. I just want to be okay. I want her to be okay. Amara reached across the table and squeezed her hand. You're going to be more than okay, sis. You're about to be set for life. Imani wanted to believe it. But belief, she was learning, required more than words. It required proof. And in 5 days, she'd be on a plane to Chicago, where the proof and everything else was waiting. The plane touched down at O'Hare just after noon. Imani had never flown first class before. Leonard's assistant had arranged everything: premium seating, priority boarding, a car service waiting at arrivals. She'd spent the entire flight staring out the window, one hand on her belly, the other gripping the armrest as if letting go might make it all disappear. A driver in a dark suit held a sign with her name on it. He smiled politely, took her single suitcase, and guided her to a black luxury sedan idling at the curb. Mr. Ashford is expecting you at the firm, he said. It's about a 20-minute drive. Imani nodded, sliding into the back seat. The leather was soft, the air cool and faintly scented with something expensive she couldn't name. Outside, the city blurred past. Steel towers, crowded streets, people moving with purpose. She'd only been to Chicago once before, years ago, for a college friend's wedding. It had felt overwhelming then. It felt surreal now. The car pulled up in front of a glass-fronted building in the Loop. Gold lettering above the entrance read, Ashford and Klein, LLP. The driver opened her door. 4th floor. Reception will take care of you. She stepped out, smoothing her maternity dress, a simple navy blue piece Amara had helped her pick out. Professional but comfortable. The kind of outfit that said, I'm here for business, but also I'm 7 months pregnant and my feet hurt. Inside, the lobby was all polished marble and soft lighting. A woman at the reception desk looked up and smiled. Ms. Richardson? Yes. Mr. Ashford is ready for you. Follow me. They took the elevator to the 4th floor, stepping into a corridor lined with mahogany doors and framed degrees. Everything smelled like old books and money. Leonard Ashford's office was at the end of the hall. The receptionist knocked twice, then opened the door. Ms. Richardson, sir. Leonard stood from behind a massive oak desk. He was older than Imani expected, mid-60s, silver hair, kind eyes framed by wire-rimmed glasses. He wore a charcoal suit and a burgundy tie, and when he smiled, it was warm and genuine. Ms. Richardson, he said, extending a hand. Thank you for making the trip. Please sit. She lowered herself carefully into one of the leather chairs across from his desk. Leonard sat back down, folding his hands in front of him. How are you feeling? He asked. The flight wasn't too difficult, I hope. It was fine, Imani said. Thank you for arranging everything. Of course. I know this is a lot to take in. He opened a thick folder on his desk, pulling out several documents. Your uncle was a very private man, but he was also incredibly thorough. He left detailed instructions for his estate. Imani's throat tightened. Can I ask, why me? We weren't close. I barely knew him. Leonard nodded as if expecting the question. Your uncle never married, never had children, but he was deeply connected to his family, your mother especially. When she passed, it affected him more than most people knew. He told me once that she was the only person who ever believed in him when he had nothing. And when he made his fortune, he wanted to honor that. Tears pricked at Imani's eyes. She remembered her mother talking about Malcolm, how he'd left home young, chased dreams no one else understood, sent money back when he could. Her mother had been proud of him. She'd always said he had a good heart, even if he kept it hidden. He kept track of you, Leonard continued, not in an intrusive way. But he knew when you graduated. When you got married, he knew about the baby. Imani blinked. He knew? He did, and he updated his will 3 months ago, right around the time you would have started showing. Leonard slid a document across the desk. This is the summary of the estate. I'll walk you through it. Amani stared at the paper. Rows of numbers, property addresses, company names. It felt like reading a foreign language. The estate includes $87 million in liquid assets, Leonard began. Stocks, bonds, savings accounts. Then there are the properties, a penthouse in Manhattan, a villa in Cape Town, a lakeside estate in Michigan, and several commercial properties in Atlanta, Chicago, and Houston. Combined valuation, approximately $95 million. Imani's head spun. There are also ownership stakes in 4 companies, Leonard continued. A logistics firm, a tech startup, a private equity fund, and a sustainable energy company. Those holdings are valued at roughly $158 million. She couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. All told, Leonard said gently, the estate is worth $340 million, and as of today, it's yours. Silence filled the room. Outside, the city hummed with traffic and life. Inside, Imani felt like she was floating. I don't even know what to do with this, she whispered. You don't have to do anything right now, Leonard said. That's why I'm here. We'll set up trusts, financial advisors, tax planning. Everything will be managed carefully. You'll have time to learn, time to decide what you want. But Ms. Richardson, I want you to understand something. He leaned forward, his expression serious but kind. This money, it's not a burden. It's not a test. It's a gift. Your uncle wanted you to have freedom, security, a life where you don't have to worry, where your daughter doesn't have to worry. That's what he wanted for you. Imani nodded slowly, tears slipping down her cheeks. I wish I could thank him. You already are, Leonard said softly, by living the life he made possible. 2 weeks later, Imani was back in Atlanta, but she wasn't staying on Amara's couch anymore. She'd signed papers for the penthouse in Buckhead, a sprawling residence with 3 bedrooms, floor-to-ceiling windows, and a private terrace overlooking the skyline. Leonard's team had arranged everything: movers, interior designers, security. Within days, the space transformed from empty elegance to a warm, lived-in home. Imani stood in the nursery, one hand resting on the crib she'd just assembled. Soft gray walls, white furniture, a mobile hanging above the crib with little stars and moons. She'd picked everything herself. No one told her what was appropriate. No one judged her choices. For the first time in years, she felt like herself. Amara walked in, carrying a box labeled baby clothes. You know you could have hired someone to do this, right? She said, grinning. Imani smiled. I wanted to do it myself. Fair enough. Amara set the box down and looked around. I still can't believe this is your life now. Neither can I. Have you told anyone else? Imani shook her head. Just you. Leonard said to keep it quiet until everything's finalized. There are still some legal things to wrap up. Smart. Amara paused, then asked carefully, What about Elliot? Imani's smile faded. What about him? Has he tried to contact you? No, and I don't expect him to. Amara crossed her arms. You know he's going to find out eventually. Let him. And when he does? Imani looked at her sister, her expression calm but firm. He walked away when I had nothing. He doesn't get to walk back now that I have something. Amara grinned. There's the Imani I know. That evening, Imani sat on her new terrace, wrapped in a blanket, watching the city lights blink to life. The air was cool, the sky streaked with orange and pink. Her phone buzzed. A text from Leonard. Everything's official. Congratulations, Ms. Richardson. You're all set. She smiled, typing back a quick thank you. Then another text came through. This one from a number she didn't recognize. Hey, Imani, it's Elliot. Can we talk? Her stomach tightened. She stared at the message, her thumb hovering over the screen. Then she deleted it, blocked the number, and went inside to finish decorating the nursery. Across town, Elliot sat in his condo, staring at his phone. The message hadn't gone through. Blocked. He frowned. He'd been hearing rumors, whispers from mutual acquaintances. Something about Imani moving, something about money. At first he dismissed it, Imani didn't have money. She barely had anything when he left. But then a colleague mentioned seeing her at a private wealth management firm downtown. Another friend saw her driving a premium SUV, brand new, fully loaded. It didn't make sense. He opened Instagram, searching for her profile. She'd gone private. He couldn't see anything. He called Amara, straight to voicemail. Something was happening, and he wasn't part of it. For the first time since the divorce, Elliot Vance felt a flicker of doubt. 3 days later, Imani received an email from Leonard's office. Attached was a financial summary. Her accounts, her investments, her properties. Everything organized, clear, accessible. She scrolled through it slowly, still adjusting to the reality of it all. Then she noticed something at the bottom. A note from Leonard. By the way, one of the commercial properties your uncle owned is located in Midtown Atlanta. It's currently leased to a real estate development firm. Vance & Associates. Imani's heart stopped. Vance & Associates did Elliot's company. She read the note again, her pulse quickening. Her uncle owned the building Elliot's company operated out of, which meant she owned it now. She leaned back in her chair, a slow smile spreading across her face. Karma, it seemed, had a sense of humor. The email sat in Imani's inbox for 3 days before she opened it again. She'd read it a dozen times already, each time feeling the same strange mix of disbelief and poetic justice. Her late uncle Malcolm, a man she'd barely known, had owned the building that housed Elliot's company. And now, by inheritance, so did she. Leonard had included a breakdown. Vance & Associates leased the entire 3rd floor of a commercial property in Midtown. The lease was up for renewal in 6 weeks. They'd been tenants for 4 years. Rent, $18,000 a month. Imani sat at her kitchen island, a cup of chamomile tea cooling in front of her, and reread Leonard's closing note. As the new property owner, you have the right to approve or decline lease renewals. If you'd like to discuss options, let me know. She hadn't responded yet, partly because she didn't know what to say, partly because she was still processing the absurdity of it all. Elliot Vance, the man who told her she wasn't sophisticated enough, who'd walked out on her while she was pregnant, who'd made her feel small, inadequate, and disposable. That man was now technically her tenant. She picked up her phone and called Leonard. He answered on the second ring. Ms. Richardson, how are you? I'm good, she said. I wanted to talk about the Midtown property, the one with Vance & Associates. Of course. What would you like to know? What are my options? Leonard's tone was measured, professional. You can renew the lease under the current terms. You can renegotiate terms, increase rent, adjust the length of the lease, add new clauses, or you can decline to renew altogether. If you choose not to renew, they'd have 60 days to vacate. Imani was quiet for a moment, her hand resting on her belly. The baby kicked gently, as if reminding her she wasn't alone in this decision. What would you do? She asked. Leonard paused. That's not a question I can answer. This is your property, your choice. But I will say this, whatever you decide, make sure it's for you. Not out of anger, not out of revenge. For you. She nodded even though he couldn't see her. Thank you. Take your time, Leonard said. You don't have to decide today. But as soon as she hung up, Imani knew exactly what she was going to do. 2 weeks later, Elliot Vance sat in his office on the 3rd floor of the Midtown building, reviewing a development proposal for a luxury condo project in Buckhead. His assistant, Kiara, knocked on the door. You've got a meeting in 10, she said. Property management. Something about the lease. Elliot frowned. I thought that was handled. Apparently not. They said it's urgent. He sighed, closing the folder. Fine. Send them in when they get here. Kiara nodded and disappeared. Elliot leaned back in his chair, glancing out the window at the Atlanta skyline. Business was good. The divorce was behind him. Sienna was everything he'd wanted in a partner. Polished, connected, ambitious. Life had finally aligned the way he'd always envisioned it. A knock at the door pulled him from his thoughts. Come in. The door opened. A woman stepped inside, mid-30s, sharp suit, leather portfolio in hand. She introduced herself as Nadia Brennan, representing the new ownership of the building. New ownership? Elliot repeated. Yes, Nadia said, sitting across from him without waiting for an invitation. The property changed hands recently. The new owner is reviewing all existing leases. Elliot's jaw tightened. This is the first I'm hearing of this. We sent a notice 2 weeks ago. I didn't get it. Nadia smiled thinly. Well, you're getting it now. She opened her portfolio and slid a document across the desk. Your lease is up for renewal in 4 weeks. The new owner has decided not to renew under the current terms. Elliot's stomach dropped. What do you mean, not renew? The building is undergoing a strategic repositioning. The new owner is exploring alternative uses for the space. Alternative uses? Elliot's voice rose. We've been here for 4 years. We have a good relationship with the previous owner. The previous owner is deceased, Nadia said flatly. The estate has been transferred. The new owner has different priorities. Elliot stood, his hands pressed against the desk. This is insane. You can't just kick us out. We're not kicking you out, Nadia said calmly. We're choosing not to renew your lease. You'll have 60 days to vacate, per the terms of your original agreement. This is going to cost us a fortune, Elliot said, his voice shaking with barely controlled anger. We've built our operations around this location. Do you have any idea what kind of disruption this causes? Nadia stood, gathering her portfolio. I understand this is inconvenient, but the decision is final. She paused at the door, glancing back at him. The new owner did want me to pass along a message. Elliot's eyes narrowed. What message? She said to tell you that sometimes people don't belong in certain circles, and sometimes those circles close without warning. The words hit him like a punch to the chest. Nadia left without another word. Elliot stood frozen, his mind racing. That phrase, people don't belong in certain circles. He'd said something like that to Imani, more than once. But that couldn't be. No, it wasn't possible. He grabbed his phone and dialed Kiara. Find out who owns this building. Now. By the end of the day, Elliot had his answer. The building was owned by an offshore trust. The trust was managed by Ashford and Klein, LLP, out of Chicago. The trust's sole beneficiary? Imani Richardson. He stared at the name on his computer screen, his hands trembling. Imani, his ex-wife. The woman he'd divorced 7 months pregnant. The woman he'd called ordinary. Unsophisticated. Not good enough. She owned the building. She owned his building. He grabbed his jacket and left the office without a word, ignoring Kiara's calls as he rushed to the elevator. Imani was in the nursery, folding tiny onesies when the doorbell rang. She frowned. She wasn't expecting anyone. Amara was at work. Leonard was in Chicago. The security desk downstairs usually called before letting anyone up. She walked to the door, peering through the peephole. Elliot. Her breath caught. For a moment she considered not answering, but then she remembered Leonard's words. Whatever you decide, make sure it's for you. She opened the door. Elliot stood in the hallway, his face flushed, his tie loosened. He looked like he'd run the entire way. Imani, he said, breathless, we need to talk. No, we don't, she said calmly. You own the building. I do. Why didn't you tell me? She leaned against the doorframe, one hand resting on her belly. Why would I? Because we were married. Because I... He stopped, shaking his head. This is insane. You can't just throw me out of my office. I'm not throwing you out, Imani said. Your lease is expiring. I'm choosing not to renew it. That's business. Business? Elliot's voice cracked. Imani, come on. This is personal, and you know it. She studied him for a long moment. The desperation in his eyes, the panic beneath the anger. He wasn't used to being on this side of the equation. You told me I didn't belong in your world, she said quietly. You made me feel like I wasn't good enough, like I was something you had to hide. So I'm just returning the favor. You don't belong in my building, and I don't owe you an explanation. Imani, please, I made mistakes. I know that. But this is my company, my livelihood. You're going to destroy everything I've built. You destroyed everything we built, she said, and you didn't lose a minute of sleep over it. Elliot's jaw clenched. How much do you want? Imani blinked. Excuse me? How much? He repeated. To renew the lease. Name your price. I'll pay it. She shook her head slowly, something like pity flickering in her eyes. You still don't get it. This isn't about money. Then what is it about? It's about knowing your worth, she said. Something I should have done a long time ago. She stepped back and closed the door. Elliot stood in the hallway, staring at the polished wood, his reflection distorted in the brass number plate. For the first time in his life, Elliot Vance had nothing to say. 2 months later, Imani gave birth to a healthy baby girl. She named her Zuri, a Swahili name meaning beautiful. The delivery was smooth. Amara was there. Leonard sent flowers. Her small circle surrounded her with love. Elliot wasn't there. He didn't call, didn't text, didn't ask. 3 weeks after Zuri was born, Imani received a notification from Leonard. Elliot's company had vacated the Midtown building. The space had been leased to a nonprofit focused on financial literacy for women and minorities. The rent was discounted. The mission was personal. Imani smiled as she rocked Zuri in the nursery, the skyline glowing softly through the window. She thought about her uncle Malcolm, the man she barely knew, the man who'd seen something in her worth protecting, worth investing in, worth believing in. And she thought about Elliot, the man who'd walked away when she had nothing. He'd gotten exactly what he gave, and she'd gotten exactly what she deserved. Viewers, do you think Imani should have renewed Elliot's lease, or did he get what was coming to him? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you're still here, thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more true stories about karma, resilience, and people who rise when others count them out. Where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. And remember, never underestimate the quiet ones.